The same in the world of business. If you don't show that vulnerability, you can't build that trust.
And I said, no, I have one, right? I have a podcast. We're almost at 100 episodes already. It's going well. And they were like, okay, cool. And then kept trying to sell me beginner podcast lessons.
It's much easier to sell a solution to an immediate pain or problem than a future one.
This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast.
The podcast for curious marketers who zig when others zag.
In this episode, find out why vulnerability in business development beats polished scripts every time, how asking the right questions can turn you into a referral generating machine, and why most salespeople are making one unforgivable mistake.
Mr. Slade. Hi, James. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. How are you doing, Erica?
Oh, I'm so good. It's so great to see you after all this time. Trying to
Hi.
think, what is it, 2 years, 3 years since we worked together?
Blimey, yeah. I think I think at least one more child added to the brood since then. So time's somewhat distorted. But yeah, it's been a few years. But we've been in touch, haven't we, via WhatsApp and the occasional phone call and stuff. So we'd obviously think we were working together for was it around 8 months, 6 to 8 months. And
Yeah.
obviously left a good lasting impression. So yeah, it's good to be back.
And LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn helps people stay
Yes.
in touch or at least stalk
Yeah.
each other so you can
Yeah.
see what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Exactly.
So thank you for joining me on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak today. I just thought, wow, you're doing such awesome stuff in business development. And as you and I have always chatted, there's such a close linkage to business development and marketing.
Yeah.
So for everyone who doesn't know you, why don't you let us know who you are and what you're up to?
Sure. So I'm James, and I very recently decided to go independent. So I founded my own limited company, and I've been doing it for 7 weeks now, going on to 8 weeks. I'm pleased to say I got my first three customers in the first month, which was brilliant. I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but it seems to be working. So here we go. So yeah, I've worked, as you said, I've worked in commercial roles for 15 years. So I've worked in everything from account management to business development. I've worked at the kind of execution, the grassroots level, and in the last few years, worked myself up to kind of a BD director role, where you end up taking on a more kind of strategic take in terms of what do we do and where should we go, that kind of piece. But there's always been an element of execution, right?
Yeah.
Particularly the last couple of companies I've worked at a bit smaller, and you wear lots of different hats. So you don't just do the strategy, but you're responsible for executing and make sure you deliver against your promises. So that's it. Yeah, I worked at some very big companies. I worked at Johnson Matthey at the start of my career, so big FTSE 100 for 5 years. Very small fish in a very big pond. And that was kind of my introduction to automotive and the world of automotive. I worked on some big accounts when I joined, so Renault, Nissan, Peugeot, Citroën, these car manufacturers, these OEMs, as they call them in the industry, making tens of thousands of vehicles every month. And then moved over to Jaguar Land Rover, which I consider kind of like a mid-tier OEM. Like they make big volumes, but not in the volumes of Ford and Honda and the like. And then Aston Martin eventually was my final kind of account that I managed in my tenure at Johnson Matthey. And so I got to see a real spectrum, right, in terms of what buyers want, because they're very different products, even though they're all cars, they're very different products, they're sort of different markets, at different price points. Some of them, I mean, they're all concerned with cost, of course they are to an element, but in terms of the quality and things like that, like each OEM, each car manufacturer has its slight nuances, right? So you learn to speak the language of the buyers and the engineers at each of those. So there's some commonality in terms of the validation and certification requirements and things like that. But in terms of their markets and what's important to them, it can be very different, right? So that was kind of my first insight into this is the same one market, you think the car market, but within the car market, even those selling similar volumes have very different outlooks in terms of what they spend on R&D and are they competing on cost or quality or luxury or power and all that. And. So it was quite an eye-opener. And then I went to Cosworth Electronics, based just outside of Cambridge. Cosworth are probably more famously known for their high performance engines, but that's out of Northampton. So you might have heard of a Cosworth DFE engine, Erica. I don't know if you've heard of that. No, okay.
No.
The second most successful engine in Formula One after Ferrari, right? So
Oh,
you've
wow.
got this wonderful legacy in motorsport. And not a lot of people outside of the industry know they do a lot of electronics. So data loggers, displays, screens, all that kind of stuff. So another And look, just to set the scene for Johnson Matthey, it was always a commercial role, right? So I'm not an engineer by trade. I'm just a naturally curious individual. I studied law at university for 3 years. I did an exec MBA part-time a few years ago. And I've kind of built this career around helping really, really clever technical individuals, mechanics, engineers, software, hardware engineers, that kind of thing, who perhaps don't enjoy the commercial side of things, right? Going out and finding a customer, doing the negotiation and that side of things. And you never do it in isolation, right? Because the products I've been selling can be quite technical. And I've had to learn quite a level of technical detail. But when you get to a certain point, there's people that get paid money to specialize in the nuances and intricacies of that particular product, right? So my role has always been very much tied at the hip with someone else. I'm never really selling in isolation. So Johnson Matthey was a catalytic converter. I knew nothing about it when I started and had to very quickly become, quite knowledgeable on the topic in terms of the regulations and the chemical composition of the products. But then I went to Cosworth, and again, I had to learn about data loggers. What's a data logger? How does that interact with the cloud, and how do you program software to control cars and all that kind of stuff? Really, really interesting. And I guess at the beginning of my career, was more biased towards account management. So looking after key clients, upselling and cross-selling, but then found that I had quite an interest in the new stuff. What's the next thing that's coming along? And I did a lot of introspection and reflection on my MBA. And I don't know if you buy into the MBTI personality types, Erica, if that's something that
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So can you take a guess at which personality type I might be out of curiosity? No? Okay. I'm an ENFP. So I'm actually quite extroverted, touchy-feely kind of thing. Feeling, intuition rather than thought. And it's good. I think it's good to have an awareness of your strengths and weaknesses, right? You lean into your strengths. And one thing I've never been so good at is kind of the more logical process way of thinking of things. So I've had to adapt certain tools to improve my efficiency at work, for example. I'm quite good at jumping around and latching onto ideas and getting other people inside and bringing them along for the ride, but it never came naturally to me, the kind of putting in your CRM, for example, and making sure you've got traceability and all the rest of it. But weirdly, I'm quite a big proponent of processes now, because as a naturally inherently lazy individual that likes to get the maximum return, for their investment, the more you can automate things that you do time and time again, the more time you can then spend on the fun stuff, like having these type of conversations, engaging with your buyer and talking about their pain points and solutions and really digging into stuff. It just makes your life easier if at the back end that's all kind of controlled. So there you go. So I guess, yeah, I went to Cosworth, I went to Ricardo Engineering, another engineering company, different again. I was selling high performance engines, battery packs, gearboxes, all kinds of wonderful stuff. Always into very high performance car manufacturers now. So at Cosworth and at Ricardo, it was more focused on lower volume stuff. So think Aston Martin, McLaren, Ferrari, those kind of very high margin, aspirational kind of products, rather than the mass market stuff that was more typical at the start of my career. And then, yeah, ended up working for some Formula One engineers who'd kind of banded together and were looking to do some work outside of Formula One. Very, very talented guys, but no one knew them outside of their little niche. So it was the first time in my career where I didn't have the benefit of a major brand, right? So
Yeah.
you might not have heard of Johnson Matthey or Cosworth, but within their world, they are household names. So from a business development perspective, half the battle is won already, right? Because people will come to you and say, James, I have a requirement for this, that, and the other. And what you're doing then is you're doing more of the qualification piece rather than the going out and the outreach, right? Because leads are coming into you. So you're just filtering what you don't want to do. And that's really important to understand in terms of capabilities, not what can we do, but what don't we want to do, or what's not going to be profitable, right? Which is slightly different from what I've been doing perhaps the last 2 or 3 years, which is these less established brands. It's been more about raising awareness and visibility, right? So, well, no one's going to come and buy from you if they don't know you're out there. So how do we do that? So that's where you start to have some crossover with marketing, right? Because the way I see it, and you might see it differently, Erica, so shout, but very, very simply to my mind, I see marketing as concerned with generating inbound business and business development more outbound, right? So that wonderful analogy that I saw on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about tending to your garden so the bees are attracted and come to you. That's marketing, right? Generating those warm leads and having the right positioning and the branding and the website, the cohesion in your messaging so that your business development representative and the website and the material, everything has a common thread and a story that people can latch onto. That's marketing. And I enjoy that part of it, but that's not the bit that I really focus on. The bit I focus on is more the conversion, right? So we now have a hot lead. How do we qualify that individual and how do we take them along that journey so that at the end of it, we are generating purchase order and revenue? And then, someone else then takes over at that point. So I'm concerned with that kind of middle tranche, that some level of not qualification, but some leaders come in, and then how do you convert that into a paid customer and in such a way that you can then upsell and cross sell and keep them happy and bought in and really kind of grow that relationship together.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So I want to latch on to two things that you said. The one is, so I'm an INTJ.
Okay.
So that's where I fit in. Um,
Erica, that's almost the polar opposite of ENFP, isn't it?
yeah.
Opposites attract. There you go. Brilliant.
So yeah, that was quite interesting to me. But the one word that you spoke about was curious. And I think that's also the word that resonates with me, which probably is another reason why we connect so well. Because my very first job, I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, but my very first job, I was at an outbound call center. And it was the days before GDPR and all this lovely stuff. And so we were phoning from the telephone directory. And it was a pay-as-you-go job. If you sold, you made commission. If you didn't sell, you got nothing, right? It really was hardcore. And my curiosity is what got me out of that call center. Number one, I was a really good seller because I was doing segmentation before it was a thing. I would just know, okay, this age woman, nah, they're hard work. This age, yeah, that age is a better group for me. So in the telephone directory, I'd scan and could see from address, from surname, from gender, from marital status, whatever I could see, I would already be segmenting, going, that's going to be hard work, park, that's going to be easy, go, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the other thing, which is a curiosity bit, and it's what you mentioned, is I asked a lot of questions because in my head, I can't sell this thing if I don't know about it. If I don't know everything there is to know about it. And I drove the then product manager crazy because I wanted to know. I went and asked questions. So I was never caught on the back foot with the client. But also, if they said something that led into something else, I could connect the dots straight away and go, oh, funny you say that. This product also does this, this, and this, right? And could lead into their needs and expectations. Whereas if you just had the standard, we worked off a script in those days, if you just had the standard call center script, it hardly said anything, right? It was just, here's the features and benefits, ta-da, do you want it? And didn't connect with your client. And you mentioned your curiosity as also being really getting into the product. Do you feel that's a core part of your success today?
100%. Yeah. I'd say it's one of the main reasons for my success, because some of the guys that I've worked with over the past have been really, really clever. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing or a personality thing, but they sometimes, it's that fear of making a mistake or being vulnerable. I like this idea of vulnerability. I might have talked about it on a LinkedIn post a while ago, that in a relationship, you can't be in a relationship with someone unless you bring the walls down and you open yourself up to the chance you might get hurt. Okay, it might sound a bit emotional and a bit wishy-washy, but it's true, right? The same in the world of business. If you don't show that vulnerability, you can't build that trust. Yes, you might get burnt, but you learn something from it, you toughen up and you move on. But if you never put yourself in that position of vulnerability and saying, Erica, I don't know what you're talking about, like, can you help me out here? It doesn't matter if you've got director or manager or partner or whatever your title is, that's it doesn't matter, right? It's interesting because the 2 points you made tie in quite nicely. So the very first job I had, aside from working in cafes and bars when I was a teenager, the very first proper job I had was working at a gym in London, selling gym membership. So I finished my law degree. I knew I didn't want to become a solicitor. A friend of mine said, there's this gym, they're looking for a sales guy. Would you like to come and do it? And I thought, yeah, brilliant. I've always been into health and fitness and exercise and things. I thought, I'll give that a go. It's a very cutthroat environment, right? Similar to your experience. I think I was on, I don't know what it was, like £400-500 a month. if I sold 29 gym memberships for the sake of argument, that was my pay. And if I sold 30, I'd earn like 2 grand, right? So, I mean, you extrapolate that scenario. What happens at the end of the month when you're at 27, 28? I mean, it's nuts. Some of the practices are very questionable at best, right? And you learn a lot of stuff that it's very, for a guy who's kind of went to sixth form in university and things, and this is his first proper job. I mean, to land in that job was like, wow, it was like a baptism of fire. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because I still think my kids, whatever they end up doing one day, they could do a lot worse than having a proper sales job as their first job, even if they want to be a doctor, an engineer, an influencer, whatever kids want to be these days, right? They could do a lot worse than that, because you learn so much about human behavior.
Yeah.
One thing about that experience, that formative experience, that I think looking back on was really useful, was that I don't know if this analogy came later on, but the principle was the same, right? That when someone walks into a gym, it's like a patient walking into a doctor's surgery. The doctor doesn't look at you. You don't just say, I've got a headache. And the doctor says, right, I'm going to prescribe some aspirin. Off you go. They go, how long has it been hurting for, Erica? Is it hurting anywhere else? Can you give me a pain score on a scale of 1 to 10? How bad does it feel, right? They ask a series of questions. And at the end of it, they then have a pretty good idea of what your pain point is. And they prescribe something accordingly to help you overcome that discomfort or that pain. It's the same thing, right? This sales course that I went on at the gym was eye-opening for me, because it's this idea of consultative selling, right? Rather than transactional or following a script. Someone walks in, something's brought them into that gym today. So you don't start by saying, right, I've got some fantastic deals for you today, Erica. It's £10 off our gym, our tiles, and this, that, and the other. Unless I know why you've come in, I'm onto nothing, right? So I'd sit down and go, Erica, why are you here today? What's brought you in? And you start to ask the why, the 5 whys. You keep asking until you uncover what brought that person in. And usually it's something like, again, segmentation, to your point, right? You can segment them into the reasons they came in. They came into the gym because they're getting married in a few months and they want to look the best they've ever looked in their life.
That's the first one I thought of.
Yeah, and that's it, cliche, but there you go. Is that. What else you've got? You've got health scares. People come in because they're overweight and they've gone to the doctors and they told them you lost weight, or they're diabetic, or they might have a heart problem. They might be reaching a certain age. They don't have a problem, but they're conscious of it. They might even, believe it or not, come into gym because they're lonely and they want companionship and that kind of thing. They want someone to talk to. So you don't sell them the weight section. You sell them a jazzercise class or yoga or whatever, right? Because that human interaction is actually what they're after. So by putting on the doctor's hat and asking the questions, eventually you can then tailor your offering to that individual, right? Because there's a number of different ways you could sell the gym membership, with or without towels, or the gym, or you could have access to all the gyms in London as part of this franchise, or just that one specific branch, the sauna, whatever. But I can't sell effectively to you unless I know what you want. So that's where I think I already had it anyway, but it kind of, very early on in my career, it's something that I carried through, was always that ask the questions. Don't assume you know what the person opposite you is thinking, right? Because stereotypes only get you so far. It's a natural mechanism that we've developed over time to protect ourselves. When you meet someone, sometimes you don't have a lot of time, so you make a very quick assessment or a judgment call based on their appearance, their tone. We did a whole module on the MBA a couple of years ago about sources of power, which was fascinating. You should try this sometime, right? Time yourself for 3 minutes and just write down every single source of power you think an individual can have. And some people wrote 5 things, 10 things, 30. And when we went through as a group collectively afterwards, we must have a list of about 60 different items that people perceive power. So things like your job title, your gender, tone of your voice, your qualifications, what university you went to, did you not go to university, what clothes are you wearing, are you carrying a weapon, are you physically intimidating, who do you know, who's in your circle of trust, all these kind of things. And I've really kind of gone down a rabbit hole the last few years in terms of, I used to read a lot as a kid, and I still read a lot now, but it's more non-fiction. I'm fascinated by sales psychology and just psychology of people. Have you heard of Robert Cialdini?
Yes.
Yeah, so his his book Influence, and there's 7 main principles he had. I think he was he spent 20 years or so signing up to various organizations, going through the sales training process, and then kind of condensed the core principles down to 7 or so. And there's things like reciprocity, which people are aware of, and then there's some more obscure things that I guess we are aware of on a subconscious level. When he articulates them, it kind of makes you more aware of them, and you can use them. You can guard against them, kind of thing. things like success by proximity. If I support Manchester United, I don't. I'm just using an analogy, right? But it's a form of tribalism, right? If my team is doing well, I use the language I, us, we, and you make it very personal. And somehow there's social kudos attributed to you if that team is doing well. If you look at the language when the teams aren't doing so well, sometimes you see it should them, they, and it becomes very impersonal. So you're trying to distance yourself. I find it mildly ludicrous that a person who's not playing football on the pitch somehow gains social kudos from their association. But it's one of these social constructs that we have. Absolutely fascinating. I could talk about that for hours, but yeah, I guess back to your point about the questioning. When you're dealing with people and understanding the person in front of you, it's so important to ask the questions and not assume, never assume that you know what's going on inside that person's head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess the difference in my first job is I was outbound, right? They weren't expecting this call. It was telephone, directory, name off.
Yeah.
But just as important to try and connect something, right? Like, do you have I was selling life insurance, right? Which is, I always tell everyone, I sold death.
Yeah.
I sold the fact that you're about to die. So come on,
Yeah.
let's get some life insurance, which is
Good icebreaker.
once you can do that, guess what? You're through the door. But
Yeah.
to try and figure out, do you have kids? Are your parents still alive? What is the context? Because like your gym with life insurance, there's usually reasons, like someone close to you passing away or someone having an accident, so there's some sort of scare that this could have happened, getting married, birth of kid. There's certain key triggers which are buying a house. There's key triggers which are easy for life insurance. And then if you're in the middle of those, it's a bit harder, right? And we speak about the nail in the foot pain, which is, yes, this has happened. And that's probably with the person walking into the gym. I've had a health scare, or I'm getting married, or there's a nail in the foot that I need this now, versus a pebble in the shoe, which is me sitting on my couch thinking every week, I should sign up for a gym. Yeah, maybe
Okay.
not this week. Maybe not
Yeah.
this week, right? And so in marketing, the important thing is the way you communicate to each of those is completely different.
Yeah.
If you come to me sitting on my couch going, Erica, there's a sauna and there's a jazzercise class or whatever, I'll be like, yeah. Next week.
Yeah. Well, that's so. What you're talking about there, I come at it at a slightly different angle, and I love the analogy. By the way, I've not heard it put like that, but again, I'm pretty sure I done this right out of the bat. Now I think about it, I probably have a lot to thank for that initial sales course because it's on reflection. It was a good one to have gone on, but and I've done a few of these, so I might be getting confused here. But I think the principle of urgency, right? So it's much easier to sell a solution to an immediate pain or
Yes,
problem than a future one.
absolutely.
And that's one of the, not the easiest things, but one of the things that you would do in marketing and BD is to bring the pain into the present, right?
Yeah.
Because while some of us understand the principles of deferred gratification and that kind of thing, I think for most of us, we live very much in the here and now. We've got busy lives. There's a lot of noise, your family, your professional life. There's that advert you saw earlier and this thing that you're worried about and that and the other. So you need to kind of ground people in the moment at here and now and create a sense of urgency for them to buy, right?
Correct.
So to your analogy, the pebble in the shoe is always going to be a lot harder to sell than the nail in the foot.
Absolutely. And from a marketing perspective, if we're and back to your gardening analogy, if we're watering the garden, that's for the nail, that's for the people in the shoe people, right? So that they just keeping drip fed this message that guess what, there is a gym, it's there. Look at all these people getting healthy from the gym, that kind of stuff continuously till the day something happens that makes me go, oh, you know what? I got to go to the gym today. Then I'm going to remember, oh, wait, James was telling me about this gym he has. That's where I'm going to go. So then you connect the dots to bring your brand back to the brand conversation top of mind. Whereas otherwise I'm going to be Googling, looking for gym near me. What's the closest? This way I don't have to. I remember, this person who's been telling me about it all the time. Let me go there and see. And he said there was a sauna. Cool, great. Let me go there.
Yeah. This is the blurred lines, right? Because similar to you, people came into the gym, but I couldn't just sit around all day waiting because there's no way I had my
Exactly.
position, right? So I did have to do a few other things. So one thing my manager tasked me with was sit down with your phone book, like you, Erica, sit down with a phone book, start at A, and he said, dial and dial and dial until you've spoken to 10 people. So don't just ring 10 people. Don't stop dialing until you've spoken to 10 people, which was another interesting kind of activity to have done. But that's kind of, I guess, the outreach part of it. But I also did the leafleting every morning at 8:30 at London Bridge. I'd be there dressed in a Superman outfit or something stupid just to catch people's attention and saying sort of ludicrous things, handing out leaflets to people. The idea being that if someone takes a leaflet every day for a month or so, around the 19th or 20th or something leafleting thing, at that point, if they're the Pebble and Shoe person, they'll go, do you know what? I should probably stop by and see James today because I've got some time, whatever. And it translates to this day and age, with A&I, with AI, in the digital world, right? So one of the first things I did was set up an automated email campaign for a little thing that I did on LinkedIn to kind of try it out with the idea that there's this regular cadence of follow-up. So the person might not respond to the first or the second, third or fourth, or even the fifth email. But if you're providing some kind of value and insights and things over time, that you're kind of building that credibility piece, right? Again, I've worked with some very big brands, you know the name instantly, but if you're a smaller, less recognized brand or someone doesn't know you because they don't come from your sphere of influence, you need to build that credibility. So
Yeah.
it does take a little bit, and you have to plant those seeds. And it's something that I guess I've had every advantage kind of going independent because it's something I've been doing for the last 15 years, right? If there's one thing I know to do well, is to continually be filling your pipeline, right? Because otherwise you end up in a peaks and troughs situation. And this has happened at the last few companies like that. They bring me in because they want to kind of smooth that, because they kind of work on a project, they finish, and then they go, what comes next?
Absolutely.
Well, it should have been, 4 weeks ago, you should have been thinking about those people, not today.
Yeah. And actually, I'm loving this gym analogy. It's working for me. So if we play it a bit more, so you said you were standing leafleting people outside a train station. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's what you did, but for me, that's a waste, right? In marketing terms, ROI, because how many leaflets of that do you have to produce, right? Like thousands and thousands, and how many are you handing out? Why not? And this I saw the other day. I only did it once, but anyway, I went to a park run.
Yeah.
Well, I did a park walk, but it's called a park run. And I did it. I was lost. They asked me to leave. Um, I'm going to say I was ill that day, but okay, I will go back. But as I was going back to my car, there was a guy standing there at the park run parking lot with his gym leaflets. And I just thought, that is brilliant. Okay. Because he's got people at a train station, you're on your way to work. Like most of the time, you're on your way to work or whatever, you're busy, you're rushing, you're like, oh, don't talk to me now. Like it's a different headspace where people coming off a park run. And again, should he have been there before the start? Probably not. They were getting ready for this thing. So he's timing, they're coming off, they're thrilled, other than me, full of adrenaline that they finished this thing. It was so awesome. They're excited. And these are people who definitely want fitness in their life, 100%, right? They're the right kind of people, the right headspace. He's got them when they're excited. They've got they're all, this is so clever. And he probably only had to print 50. Right? And so that's the kind of stuff I love helping businesses do is, yes, leaflet. So you can easily step back and go leaflets to people. Brilliant idea. But where? When? What are they thinking? This is the curiosity we spoke about, right? What is the mindset that makes it easy for them to go, actually, yeah, cool. Let me take your leaflet and I'll definitely sign up now, right?
And it's an interesting one. I mean, that was very early on in my career, so I didn't define the strategy. I was just handed a part to go. James, don't come back until you've handed out 100
exactly.
Okay, so say so.
Now I bet you would go and advise that gym guy completely differently. You'd be like, "Are you sure?"
But there was some, I guess there's some logic behind it in the sense that the gym was located just outside the train station. You got a high volume of traffic in the morning. No one's coming to the gym between 8:30 and 9 during the commuting hours. So I could be sat at my desk dialing. Instead, I'm stood there in a gushing river, a torrent of people disembarking from their trains on their off. And yes, of course, you get the dirty looks and the elbow thing and all the rest of it, but there'll also be people in that crowd that are stressed and at work and worried about their
Absolutely.
health and that kind of thing. So there is definitely an audience in there somewhere. Nowadays, you might be setting more the wellness kind of angle, I guess, than a straight up just sort of fitness kind of thing, because that's very, very kind of in vogue, and there's a awareness about mental health and that kind of thing. So, um, yeah, possibly you'd go about it differently, or you know, there's billboards different ways, but if you did get someone to stop and talk to you and you have that human interaction, and the chances of me then converting is in bringing that person into the gym and having a conversation were very high, right?
Exactly.
So
Absolutely agree with
1,000
that.
people might walk past. If I only stop 2 on the day and I manage to get them to come into the gym, brilliant. The most effective method I found sticking with the analogy of the gym, which is bizarre because I spent the last 15 years working in automotive mobility.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit more about the work you're doing now? What are the kind of clients you help?
Yeah, so it's a bit more varied because I'm unshackled, as it were. You know, I'm not bound to one customer, one product, one company kind of thing. So it's been quite varied. It's been nice. I did so the first sort of 3 customers then, if I redact their names and things just for confidentiality, but in terms of what they were, I
But
did
why don't you share what their problem was that you
yeah,
solved? So
yeah,
what they sell could be gym memberships, right?
yeah.
That doesn't matter. It's like, what problem did you help them solve, or are you helping them solve?
Yeah, so the first one, let's go with the most recent one, is one I've just delivered. There's this company that builds equipment for veterinary practices. They've been around for about 20, 25 years. There's just 2 of them. And they sell a very high margin product. They make around, I don't know, 100 to 150 grand a year. And it's ticked over nicely. One of them is a full-time vet and does this on the side, and the other kind of runs the company. It's a mechanical and engineering kind of problem. And it's a brilliant product because it's obviously high margin and it helps with animal welfare. So it's got a lot of kind of ethical and moral reasons as to why you want this product to exist. But they're both kind of approaching retirement age, and they're worried, I guess, that when they retire, that this product will basically cease to exist. They effectively, their problem is they're looking for, and I don't think they fully articulated it, but I kind of, when they described it to me, I articulated it as finding someone, a custodian of their technology to carry it forward, right? And they just didn't know where to begin. So they want this product to be kind of more widely adopted, not from a revenue, a cynical cash grab kind of perspective, but literally because it will benefit animal welfare. And they want to find the right kind of candidate to kind of take it forward. And they want to understand what a licensing model looks like and so on. So it's kind of it was reviewing their business and understanding where it stands today, what would make it attractive to a potential custodian or buyer kind of thing. So it's almost like an investor pitch deck with an element of, I guess the next stage is almost the headhunting part, right? Which is a bit different to what I'm used to, but going out and finding the right candidate and then selling them on the idea and the value and what they're looking for and helping them kind of vet that candidate. So it's a bit different, but really interesting. And the same kind of principles apply in terms of looking at their business and understanding this is the state of play. This is how much commercially, you know, I would value the business. And this is where the unique parts of the business stand, your USPs, your barriers to entry, all the things that would make it attractive to someone who's looking to invest in a business, right? Because they're coming at it from a very kind of animal welfare point of view and the betterment of society, that kind of thing, but you also need to ultimately convince someone on the cold hard kind of the cash kind of perspective of the commercial benefits of owning their business. So it's kind of helping them articulate why this would be an attractive offer for someone to take on.
Okay.
So that's quite different, but really, really interesting. Then I've helped a technology cluster, so a membership organization that had around 170 members or so, and they want to grow it. Basically, they have a target attrition rate. They're just below that, so they onboard as many as they kind of offboard roughly every month. So they've kind of plateaued in terms of membership, and they didn't know what to do. So they're like, their problem is we want to grow. Again, they're not for profit. They don't want to grow because they want to generate loads of cash, but they want to make enough cash that they can hire account managers and add more value to their members and become the thought leaders in their field and all the rest of it, right? So their challenge was, how do we overcome this plateau? And specifically, I think the reason they're interested in my background expertise is because they've got lots of kind of smaller SME type organizations. How do we land the big whales? How do we land 2 or 3 clients that are kind of 10, 100 million plus turnover? Because then you have your virtuous cycle, your halo effect, right? You can charge more for those customers if you can provide them with more value by giving them access and vetting all these different companies that could potentially be suppliers. And then conversely, you attract more SMEs into the business because they suddenly go, oh, Google, Microsoft, whoever it happens to be, is now part of this organization. I want some of that action. So that was another challenge. So you can see it's a bit different, but again, still grounded in kind of looking at what is the value in the business and what value can I provide customers to attract them to come in and join the cluster.
Absolutely.
That's that. And then what's the third one? And the third one was a chap who's basically invented a brand new sports league. It's brilliant. I won't say too much again at this stage because it's still early days, but there is some material and literature out there. But he's basically got buy-in from a number of very famous celebrities in the world of sports. And he's come up with this new concept. And he basically wanted an investor pitch deck. He needs to now go and secure investment to buy into his idea. And it's a wonderful idea. Like, I've found, probably because I've had 15 years of doing this now, that I've actually turned away some work. Even before I had some work, I was like, I'm not going to do this because I understand the principle of opportunity cost, right? If I start wrapping myself in doing low value things, it doesn't free me up to then focus on cool stuff like this. So he's got a great little idea. And I was brought in by a friend of his to go, I want to kind of look at investing in this business, but I don't know if it's worth my time and effort. So this guy paid me to do a feasibility assessment, basically look at what is the total addressable market, what partnerships have we got in place, all these kind of, they didn't know what they wanted. I kind of told them this is the criteria to assess whether or not this is potentially a profitable idea going forward. And so their challenge was, should I invest my time and effort into this business? My conclusion was yes, but not in the way you thought, because I think they were trying to secure several hundreds of £1 million investment. And my argument was build a proof of concept, sit with a small closed group of potential target audience, validate your idea, and then make changes really quickly, right? Because you'll make assumptions right now about what you think is important to Erica, the features that Erica might like. But until you give it to Erica and she tries it, and she plays with it, and she comes back and says, this is really important, but this isn't, you just don't know, right? And you can't be all things to all people. So focus on 2 or 3 features, really nail those down. And then once you've proved your concept, you've got something you can take to investors. You can go, here we go. I've validated the idea. I've tested it with these number of people. This is the feedback. This is the work. And here's my working prototype. And this is exactly the amount of money that I need to now go forward and take it to the next level. So yeah, it's interesting. You can see there's sort of 3 very different ones, kind of a legacy IP licensing thing. The other was this feasibility study. And I also did an extra bit of work for them in terms of distilling the core USPs, the problem, the solution, the total addressable market, and the team into kind of 6 slides so that he can now go out and start securing that investment. So yeah, quite different, but all very much within my toolkit in terms of the commercial support.
Yeah, I love it. Very, very fascinating. It's interesting because I'm working with a client at the moment who's come up with a new category. And again, it's wonderful. He's very excited about it and is convinced this is going to change the world. But what is their need? Like, let's validate it first. Because he's come to me going, market this, Erica. There we go. Do the marketing. To who? For what? What am I going to say? I need some info first, right? Before I can just market. It's not a button that I push and it goes, bing, off you go, go live. And so, yeah, working with, and I think you found this as well, working with owner-run businesses, especially where they're so passionately involved in their product, and they can't lift their head out of what they consider their zone of genius, right? Because it often is genius, which is fabulous, but unless somebody else wants it, it's kind of great, for you.
It's like another, I could call it a basic skill, a bit like curiosity and asking questions, right? I have a lot of respect for those founders that I've met over the years, and I can think of a few that immediately come to mind who understand the importance of delegation.
Yeah.
And it seems so simple, but as you said, if it's your baby that you've created, it's very, very tough. because your ego and everything else is wrapped into it. It can be really hard to let go. I found a lot of the guys actually, and girls, the people on my executive MBA came from very technical kind of background. So you get solicitors, you get engineers, those kind of things, people who have delivered and executed and all the rest of it. And they suddenly find themselves, as is often the case, promoted into a position of management where you're no
Yeah.
longer doing the thing that you started at start your career to actually managing people. I have a great example of a friend of mine I went to secondary school with, went to a very high performance automotive manufacturer and founded the kind of the customization part of that business. Like James Bond has Q making all kinds of cool gadgets for his Aston Martin. It's like that kind of thing. And he ended up managing a team of around 120 people with a couple of other managers, and he hated it. He was like, the reason he joined that business was to make cool cars, like to do cool stuff. He wanted to be on the not on the tools, but doing the designing and the engineering kind of thing. And so he actually left that business. So I have a lot of time and respect for people who recognize what they want to do and what they don't want to do, because you talk about a product market fit. Well, what about for you as an individual in the business that you're in, right? It's the same thing. You need to align what you're good at, what you enjoy, to what the world needs and what people will pay for. It's ikigai, right? The principle of finding your kind of niche. So yeah, it's a really important point, I think.
Yeah, I think you are right. My very first mentor always said to me, Erica, the day you manage people, or even as a team leader, right? You don't need to be the GM, but even as a team leader, the day you have your first person to look after, you have a different job.
Yeah.
And he said, unless it's not just you're just going to keep doing your job with some support. It's not that, right?
Yeah.
You have a different job. Leadership is a different job.
Yeah.
And you need to be aware of that, or else you mess it up.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was making. The point I was making around the exec MBA was a lot of those guys really technical, operations guys, engineering guys, human resources, all the rest of it. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them, I'd say, had reached a point in their career where they're managing teams and they join the MBA because they go, I cannot get this person to do what I tell them.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how to do it. But what they've done is they've gone, I don't know what I'm doing. Again, with the curiosity and the vulnerability piece, or admitting that you don't know something, put your hands up. Brilliant, because guess what? There are tools that you can equip people with, right? Frameworks that you can put in place. I think sales gets a bad rep, I think, sometimes because it's not, you can't get a sales degree like you get a marketing degree, right? So I think there's a certain I can't think what the word is. There's a certain sheen or whatever that comes with marketing, that it's a professional vocation, whereas sales is something you do because you can't do anything else. You either have the gift of the gab or you don't, right? But
And
actually,
it's icky, James. It's icky.
yeah, and it's and that kind of thing. But it's not like there are things. I think you get a lot of success by being genuine and you having genuine interactions with people, but you can still have a plan. Like when I go to trade shows and things, I'm representing a company. I go there with a very clear purpose and objective in mind. What I don't do is stand there with a script and go, "Hi, Erica. I am James from XYZ. Would you be interested in buy?" I come and I always say to Erica, "Why are you here today?" Like I always start with what do you do? Why are you here? I can tell you a little bit about me if you'd like to. That's fine. But then let's just talk. Let's just talk and have and get there organically, but very deliberate in terms of going there and being like, what do you do? What do I do? And can we uncover something, right? And work together. So, but you can teach that to people,
But
I think.
isn't that the bad rep, though? Because how often are we not hit by the scripted conversation that absolutely you can hear you're not interested in me at all, right? It's like
Yeah.
literally you're trying to
Yeah.
move me on. I think I shared this. I was talking to someone about podcasting, so they do podcasts, and so I was talking to them about it, and I said, "No, I have one, right? I have a podcast. We're almost at 100 episodes already. It's going well." And they were like, "Okay, cool," and then kept trying to sell me beginner podcast lessons, like how to set it up, and I'm like, "But I've just told you I have one. It's 100. It's like it's 2 years old. It's going for
That,
a while now." Like, no, no,
that's
no.
unforgivable. That's unforgivable. That from a sales, I find that unforgivable because you're not listening. You're
No,
not listening.
and all
You're
they
not listening.
are is like, no, no, you no, no, you can still learn a lot from this session, Erica, where we talk about what tech you need and how to name it. And like, no, I don't want to change my name. What are you talking about? I've got that
Yeah.
stuff now. I'm
Yeah.
happy with my name. I'm happy with my tech. I'm happy with everything.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be talking. I think with
And
everyone on call.
you have to know when to, and I think this is the other thing that comes with having done this for a while is I guess you understand the principle when you start out, but it's hard because you're desperate for commission, you're desperate to impress your boss and all the rest of it. But I'm more than happy to say to people, and I've done it before in interviews of late in the last few years without being rude to people, but I come to a point and go, you seem like a wonderful individual, Erica. You've got some fantastic skills. You're just not what we're looking for. Like you will thrive in another environment, but this just isn't for you. And I know it's not. So, you're giving people the utmost respect by telling them this is going to be a waste of both our time, basically. Move on. And you let them down gently and you move on. Because
or the other way, right? This is not for me. Like,
yeah, yeah,
thank you so much. I'm gonna end this now because this is not for me.
yeah, it's opportunity cost. I keep coming back to that principle, opportunity cost. If I'm wasting time, and it is wasting time, if I'm wasting time trying to sell you something you don't want, I'm not selling to someone who does have what I need.
Exactly. And then, I mean, they switched gears halfway through and then apparently had a program for experienced podcasters. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds more like me. But like throughout the whole thing, I said, wouldn't it just be normal for you to ask me what's the name of my podcast? I've told you like 5
Yeah,
times now that I
yeah,
have one, and it's 2 years old and it's been running for a while. And
yeah,
where's your curiosity? Like,
100%.
hey, oh, you have one. That's fabulous. What's the name of it? Let me look it up quickly. Wow, I see this is what you like, anything. And
This
even
is
if you
why.
lie, going, what a cool name. I don't know what it is. But that's how you get rapport, right?
100%. This is why, Erica, I don't care for what I say because I don't want to box myself into a corner. But um, go-to-market strategies, it's all over LinkedIn and everywhere else. People are developing AI tools to kind of do it for you, right? And I did a post about this recently. AI has definitely helped me secure the customers I did. I probably wouldn't have been as quick or as successful as I have been without AI doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But I've had to intervene quite a lot. Like I tried
Yeah,
to do my first proposal using AI. I spent about an hour and a half and I was like, it's just not getting it. So I took it offline. I wrote the whole thing and then I chucked it back in and I refined it and I'm getting better using the prompts and all the rest of it. But it still needs the operator, right? The analogy I use, a little insight into my ego here, is of Iron Man, right? I'm Tony Stark. I've got my Iron Man suit. That's my AI, right? The suit helps me lift things and move faster and increase the volume, but it's still constrained by the limitations of me, the pilot, right? So
absolutely.
it's like when I signed up for my MBA, those years ago, I got bombarded for about 6 months nonstop on Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere else. All the adverts were join the Cambridge Judge Business School and join the Open University MBA. And I was like, are you stupid? Like, I've signed up to it. Like, I literally don't have a need. I'm doing it right now. I can understand the limitations of software, but I find that inexcusable in a human because a human can look at it and go, so you're doing an MBA. Brilliant, Erica. Well, it's lovely to meet you. Good luck with the rest of the show. I'm off, and you move on.
Or do you know anyone else who's looking like
Even better.
change
Even
it a
better.
little bit, right?
Yes, yes. That actually, funny enough, the gym membership stuff really took off after the first month was the only month I didn't hit my commission in those 6 months. The reason I hit it every month afterwards, excuse me, was referrals. I'd say at least 60, 70% of the business came from referrals. So one lady I sold a gym membership to the first month came back with two of her friends,
Yeah,
said, these guys, can you give them the same deal? Yeah, boom, 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 job done, in and out in 10 minutes. That was it. Because I didn't have to build that credibility. I built that credibility and that social kudos or whatever with that person. They trusted me. And so they become my evangelist. They go and sell the product on my behalf. So they're sold before they even come into the gym. How wonderful is that?
absolutely. But people forget to ask, right? Or
Yeah,
forget to just
exactly.
recommend, say,
Yeah,
hey, do you know anyone else who could benefit from this?
yeah.
Send
And
them my
that's
way.
that's the first thing I do when I walk into a new business. If you're looking for short-term revenue, you look at your existing customers. How can we cross-sell, upsell, right? Other additional services or charge more for what we've got. And then who do they work with, who are their suppliers and things, and also critically, who are their competitors? That's the other really easy one. If I'm selling to you, Erica, how many other Ericas out there that are doing a similar thing? Because if you've got a need for my services, there's a pretty good chance your competitors have a need for my services too. Doesn't matter what it is, right? But they're doing the same sort of thing. They must be using similar tools. It's not that complicated. It seems like a dark art, but again, in the same way with marketing and developing a product and project management, there is a sequence of events and channels and defined ways of working that you can follow. So again, I'm a firm believer that you can teach anyone the skills. If they're willing to learn, like anything, you can teach them how to be better at it.
Awesome. James, I think we could talk for another 2 hours quite easily.
Yeah, it's
We've
brilliant.
covered a wonderful range of topics today. I love it. It's awesome. But if anyone's interested in contacting you to talk about your services and how you can help, or just have a general chat, how can we get hold of you?
Yeah, so you know, ever practical in my BD hat. The first thing I did when I set up my business was focus on generating leads. I got my first kind of invoice out, and then I had to scrabble to get an account set up because I don't actually have a business account. So I'm working lean. And all that to say, I don't have a website. I don't need a website. I do my outward facing personality is LinkedIn, right? So if you find me on LinkedIn, it's just James Sage, search for James Sage. Quite easy to spot with my bald head and my smiling face. So yeah, search for James Sage on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach me. I share insights on there. You can DM me, you can comment on a post, whatever you're comfortable with. You can visit the company page, but there are contact details on my LinkedIn page if you want to reach out.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any last words of wisdom for our audience?
Last words of wisdom. Yeah, I guess we kind of danced around it a little bit. I started to touch upon it, but AI will do a lot of things, and I think it also, these large language models, automation, it all gets lumped under the umbrella of AI, right? But there are different levels of intelligence, and some things are automation and some things are intelligence. I think, and I've been reading about this recently, that given that the way the world's going and the proliferation of AI, if you and I end up having a conversation and it's one AI talking to another, there's going to reach a point where we're going to return to the old way of doing things in terms of sitting down with someone and looking them eye to eye before you sign the dotted line for a 50 million pound contract or 10,000, whatever it happens to be. You're going to want to be in person and see them and sense the human and the real intentions, all their flaws and biases and stuff on display, because you need to expose that vulnerability. So I think I could be wrong about this, but don't forget that in this world where AI seems to be taking everything over, there is still very much a need for human interaction and that face-to-face kind of relationship building. And I really enjoyed this. This is way more fun than talking to ChatGPT.
Good, I'm glad. Thank you so much, James. It's been really awesome having you on the show, and let's definitely do another catch-up soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Erica. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Giraffes Don't Eat Steak, where curious marketers zig when others zag. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with someone who loves great marketing conversations. And don't forget to follow, review, or drop us a note. We love hearing from fellow curious minds, and if your own marketing's feeling a bit tangled, check out our Marketing Power Hour. It's a focused one-to-one session designed to help you get clarity and momentum. Just go to themarketingdetectives.com and book your slot. Until next time, keep zigging.